Hey everyone, Sujan Patel here from Mailshake. Welcome to another video interview with today I've got Max Pashman. We're going to go a little different today. We're going to talk about personal finances for sales reps. So instead of talking about how to get more leads, revenue, we're going to talk about the money you make and how to actually how to make that better and just really thinking about your personal finances. Max is a financial planner working specifically with sales professionals and tech professionals. Um, and one of the biggest things his differentiator is really he's a fee only advisor, meaning he's not getting paid from anyone else outside of clients that he works with. So there's no like backdoor deals or whatever. So I find that to be rare in the financial planning world. But Max, welcome.
Yeah, happy to be here and I appreciate the introduction. It's awesome to be able to share the message with a lot of sales reps on here.
Yeah, and so personal finance is not something we like normally think about or talk about as an entrepreneur or as a sales guy. I'm thinking like, when am I going to make my next close my next big deal? When am I what's that going to be in what's like my top line revenue? You have taxes and all that stuff, but I guess like high level, how do you even start to think about kind of getting started with coordinating and getting your personal finances in order as a sales rep?
Yeah, the way that I like to approach it is when we work in sales with our companies and we have quotas and we have numbers that we want to hit, we kind of operate as our own little startup in this sense because we have to know our numbers. We have to know how many people to call. We have to set a certain amount of meetings. We put all of these numbers together in an effort to create a certain amount of revenue. And I see that a lot of people are very creative in this area because they're very adamant about creating income. Who isn't, right? But what we try to do is we try to continue that not just with earning income, but keeping it, how we spend it, and how we invest it on the side. And what I do is I help people try to keep up that number crunching when it comes to their own finances because while it's great to work on your revenue with your own company, with what you earn and what you keep, it's like you have your own startup at your own home in a sense. So my goal is to make sure that a lot of the sales reps understand that it works on both sides of the spectrum. You try to work your numbers on how much revenue you get. But you also got to work your numbers on how you keep it and you invest it into your future self.
Nice. So let's say you get a big fat commission check. What do you what do you do? What do you do with that?
Yep, it's the $1 million question, right? I think that there's a reason why we put the word personal in front of finance because it could lead to so many different things with your own money. But I think that when someone receives a large commission check, what traditionally happens before they start working with me is I try to put myself in their shoes. You worked on a deal that took you weeks, months, or could have been even close to a year. Like you spent so much time working with a single prospect to get to your closed deal. And then once you finally get the finish line, you get your reward right there. It's the first thing you want to do. You want to enjoy it, right? You want to spend it somewhere, whether it's a trip or a purchase that you make. And that's not to say they spend their entire commission check, but that's usually like the first place that they look. And
Hmm.
what I try to do, especially with people that I work is we try to coordinate when those payouts happen so that we have a game plan for how we distribute it so that even though you can enjoy those benefits for yourself from that lump sum commission check, are you allocating appropriately based on your long-term goals that you're setting on yourself? And then the other part that I think that a lot of people get confused about, especially with a large commission check, is they get worried because they see the payout that they got, but then they see the amount that ends up in their bank account. And they start to say to themselves, oh, this was not a good idea because I got taxed so much. Well, the reality is that you didn't actually get taxed more. What happens usually is you get withheld more in taxes from your commission check. So your employer just simply takes more out from the paycheck. But if they take out more than they should have, you usually get it back in the form of a refund. But the point of talking about all of that is that there's a lot of planning that goes around when you get a lump sum compared to your regular base salary. And that requires a couple additional steps that you have to take behind the scenes to make sure that you're maximizing your efforts.
Gotcha, gotcha. So it's really just there's a lot more planning than there is in I guess like someone who's getting consistent income on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Um, you've got like a blueprint. You have a financial blueprint. What are kind of the key components? It might not be easiest to share. We can yeah, well, maybe link to the details in the show notes, but like, what's kind of high level? What's that blueprint include?
Yeah, the goal of the blueprint, which is basically my version of the financial plan, is to help people visually see what their numbers look like. Because I've worked with a lot of different institutions and a lot of advisors, and the financial plans are just very dreary, either because they're 100 pages long or filled with text and terminology that just goes right through everyone's heads, right? So the point
Mhm.
of the blueprint that I share with clients is that it's supposed to visually show every single section in a way that's easily digestible. And depending on what everyone's situation looks like, that blueprint varies depending on what types of goals you're trying to accomplish in the near term or in the long term. So a lot of the areas that the blueprint can cover is managing your cash, debt, investing, retirement, financial independence, equity compensation, estate planning, insurance, real estate, you name it. It illustrates every single section that you want to actually look over. And I think it's important for everyone to have some kind of blueprint in their situation because they need to fall back to a plan when all else fails. When things go out of place, whether it's an emergency that occurs or if you change a job or even lose a job, you have to make sure that the plan that you set in play is going to help you redirect and stay on course to what you want to do. And it gives you some direction of what to do in the meantime.
I love it. Yeah. One of the things I think is super important, just as as every human is having a financial plan. You'd be surprised, like the number of people who just the percentage of humans and not just sales pros don't have any type of financial literacy or like you don't learn this in school. Like like save money, like how much? Where should I invest it? What should I do with it? Right? You generally like just kind of wing it. What I love about what you do is your services are kind of a couple $100s a month with an initial setup fee, and it's available for folks that might not be super wealthy yet, right? It's the way to build kind of wealth, and it's I say any plan is better than no plan, right? And then you can they've got you on your side to kind of keep thinking about what to do better when they make more or whatever. And generally, you know, services like this are available for folks that are fairly wealthy, right? You've got to have a couple 100,000 minimum or a couple million in your bank account to really get this type of level of stuff. But well, you've tailored it specifically to folks that probably are high income earning occasionally, not always, right? Because it's variable. But my guess is folks that are probably not making them as much as they made last year, this year. But if you've got Max on your side, you could probably plan for that or adjust for that, or again, having your personal finances at least taken care of versus winging it.
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it right there. The way that the regular industry has been positioned is that they want to service those that are high wealth because they have a ton in assets. And the traditional business model is with an AUM model, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But the reason why they target people with a lot of wealth is because they charge a percentage off of it. And what I typically find is that there's a lot of people that are seeking a financial planner, but they don't have that much in assets yet. They have a lot of great income, and maybe it's because they just overspend or they just haven't put together a game plan on how to maximize their finances. And we actually have a term for this. They're called Henrys. They're high earners, not rich yet. So they have the tools ready to actually build wealth. They just need a little bit of guidance behind it. And the reason why I positioned it like that and I do a monthly subscription service is because it's, supposed to help those with good personal cash flow that don't necessarily have assets on the side yet. And the way that I position it with it is to make it more of an engaging process, meeting with them quarterly, having monthly communications, and really being a partner versus just looking at it as an investment manager, because that I realize is how the landscape has changed, especially for sales professionals. And a lot of them are, I'd say half of them are pretty good with investing on their own, but they just want a little more guidance as far as their financial planning matters are concerned outside of just their investments.
Yep, yeah, that makes sense. I have one more question for you. So, I know that you cover this kind of in your services, but how do you think about equity compensation or just equity, right? You know, options, shares, things that have a dollar value today, but you don't actually seize the benefit or realize the benefit of that sometimes ever, or when you do, it's like, oh, I wish I had planned for this $1 million check that I don't know I'm going to probably get taxed heavily on.
Yeah, I think so. The first question or the first thing that we have to remember about equity compensation is that there's a specific word that says compensation in there. It's really an alternative form of cash. So the first thing that you have to remember is that, this specific payment type is something that's going to be attained to you typically in the form of time and investing schedule. So the moment that you have the equity available to you, it's up to you whether you want to reap the benefits now, if you can, or if you want to hold on to it long term. And I think some people have a hard time grasping this concept because they're being told invest long term, don't immediately sell too quickly. But I think what people need to come to terms with is that this specific equity is supposed to be treated like your normal salary. So it's actually up to you if you want to reap the benefits now or if you want to invest long term. But just like commissions itself, it's also withheld very differently. And the reason why commissions, bonuses, equity compensation are all, tax different is because the IRS considers it as supplemental income, which means that it's not withheld like your normal income. That would be considered regular income. They withhold it based on your tax rate. But instead, equity compensation, when it gets withheld, it's based off of a flat rate, and that's 22% up to $1 million, and anything above the million is at a flat 37%. But all the more reason why it makes sense to review this, especially from a tax component, because if you're with a company and they IPO and you have this massive gain that you've sustained inside of a stock option, there's a lot of tax considerations to consider as far as when should you exercise it, how much should you exercise, what kind of effects that does up front. If it creates ordinary income tax consequences today, or in some cases like incentive stock options where it might come around the corner in terms of an AMT. The point of illustrating all this is generally more complicated than a lot of the other topics. So if you ever have equity compensation, it's best to reach out to a financial professional or a tax professional, because a lot of this stuff you shouldn't be doing on your own. You can kind of coordinate it with your coworkers as far as what they have done and what makes the most sense. But you have to remember that your situation is different from everyone else's. Your income's different, your expenses are different, your goals are different, your short-term needs are different. So it's important that you reach to someone out and make sure that you get a secondhand opinion to see if it's a right fit for you.
Love it, love it. I think the the hard part here is like if you're an expert in your field, let's say you're a doctor, you can still suck at finances. Like not you can't the amount of energy it takes for you to get good at this stuff, you're losing on opportunity cost of doing what you actually know, right? And so my 2 cents is go hire Max or like go explore financial planners, hire them, spend the money, get your time back. You have someone trusted to do the things that to help your money make money or minimize taxes or all that stuff, long term. you know, planning, and then do what you do best and get better at that, right? Like I can get better at marketing or product in hours. And if I spend hours on financial planning, I will be 1% of good as what you are, right? Just from your experience and all that stuff. So, um, yeah, that's it. Max, where can people go to learn more, hire you, what have you?
Yeah, absolutely. The three best places are on my website at pashmanfinancial.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm mostly active on there, or you can find me on Twitter as well. I usually engage with a lot of financial planners on there. But if you ever want to reach out with any questions, I'm happy to help out. Just shoot me a DM anytime.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Max. I look forward to getting this thing out.
Thank you. Appreciate you.